Hello dear students, I am Sanju Hazria, Assistant Professor of English at Government College Ratangad. Today we will study Alfred Lord Tennyson's poem The Lotus Eaters. And before studying this poem, I am going to divide this poem in two sections. First is introductory section and second is explanation section. In introductory section, I will give introduction of the poet, introduction of the poem and summary of the poem. And in second section, I will give the explanation of the poem. So as you know, in introduction of the poet, I am giving introduction of Alfred Lord Tennyson. Alfred Lord Tennyson was the first Baron and he was born on 6th August 1809 and died on 6th October 1892. He was a British poet. He was the poet laureate during much of Queen Victoria's reign and remains one of the most popular British poets. In 1829, Tennyson was awarded the Chancellor's Gold Medal at Cambridge for one of his first pieces, Timbuktu. It was his first writing. He published his first solo collection of poems chiefly lyrical in 1830. Claribel and Mariana, which remain some of Tennyson's most celebrated poems. And these are very popular poems by Alfred Lord Tennyson, were included in this volume. Although decried by some critics as overly sentimental, his verse soon proved popular and brought Tennyson to the attention of well-known writers of the day, including Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Tennyson's early poetry, with its medievalism and powerful visual imagery, was a major influence on the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. So, Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood were very inspired by Alfred Lord Tennyson. And now, introduction of the poem. So, as you know, our today's poem is The Lotus Eaters, and The Lotus Eaters is a poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson, and he was first Baron, and it was published in 1832 poetry collection. It was inspired by his trip to Spain with his close friend Arthur Hallam, where they visited the Pyrenees mountains. The poem describes a group of mariners who, upon eating the lotus, are put into an altered state. Means they are in a very trance condition, they are in a hypnotized condition and isolated from the outside world. The title and concept derives from the lotus eaters in Greek mythology. So this title is taken from Greek mythology. The Lotus Eaters poem, as you know, is written by Alfred Lord Tennyson, and it was published in collection of poems in 1832 dated 1833. The poem is based on an episode in book 9th of Homer's Odyssey. The first and second halves of the Lotus Eaters are formed differently. Means the first and second half are different from each other. The first half is divided into 5 stanzas of 9 lines. These 9-line stanzas are referred to as Spencerian stanzas due to their use by Spenser in the Faerie Queene. Means such type of stanzas were written by Spenser in the Faerie Queene at first time. So they are called Spencerian stanzas. The rhyme scheme remains consistent throughout, following the pattern of AB, AB, BC, BCC. Additionally, each line follows the same pattern of meter except for the final 9th line of each stanza. The first 8 lines are written in iambic pentameter, while the 9th is composed of 6 iambic feet. It is also known as an Alexandrine line. The second half of the poem is structured much more loosely. There is no defined rhyme scheme, just as each section has its own theme, so too does it have its own rhyme scheme. So this is the introduction of the poem. And now summary of the poem. Alfred Lord Tennyson is based on a portion of Homer's Odyssey in which Odysseus men are fed lotus plants and become mesmerized by the land onto which they have stumbled. Means Tennyson has based this poem, the Lotus Eater poem, on Homer's Odyssey, in which Odysseus' men are fed the lotus plant and they are very mesmerized, they are in a hypnotized condition by the land onto which they have come. The poem begins with Odysseus commanding his men to have courage. They will soon find a shore on which to land. They do so almost immediately, and it enchants them with its overworldly beauty. Means this land is very beautiful, and they are enchanted by the beauty of that land. There are valleys, snowy mountains, and cliffs that are covered in streams. Means this land has valleys, very beautiful valleys, and snowy mountains and cliffs. So they are very, very enchanted by the beauty of that land. While the men are looking at their surrounding, the lotus eaters appear. Means while the Odysseus men are looking at the beauty of that land, then the lotus eaters, means the persons who were living on that land, appear before them and they will deliver to the men branches covered in lotus flowers and fruits, and they give them the lotus flowers and fruits to eat them. The men who eat these fruits, all but Odysseus, fall under the empty spell of the land, and they are now very spellbounded by that land. They believe that they no longer want to continue their quest homeward, and now they believe that they do not want to go towards their homeward and would rather stay there, and they want to stay there where they do not have to worry about making their way back to the fatherland, and where they have no worries they should go to their fatherland or not. Okay. The second half of the poem is made up of a choric song. In the second half, the crew is singing a chorus song, a collective song in which the men describe all the reasons, and in that song they are describing the reasons why they want to remain on the island, why they want to stay on that island. They do not think that it is the fair that they should have to labor their whole lives while no other being is forced into the same fate, and now they have the grudge against the fate which is given to human beings. They have to do so much labor while the other animals are living lazily. So they are singing about the labor their whole lives they have to do, and while the no other being is forced into the same fate. As humans, this is what their lives consist of, and they no longer want to take part, and now they want to lead a lazy life, they want to relax in their life, and they do not want to take part in that labor. They confess that they want most is in a life in which they relax until their death, and now they confess what they want in their life. They want to do relax in their life until the death. They want to live like a leaf does, simply existing and then dying when it is their time. And now they confess that they want to live they want to live a natural life like a leaf, simply existing and dying when it is their time. Instead, the men state they are headed towards death through a life that is nothing but misery. While the human beings' lives are very miserable, they are full of worries, and they have to do so much work, so they do not want to lead a life which is so full of miseries. They would rather die now than have to work their whole lives. So they would like to die instead of working in their whole lives. The men do make sure to mention their wives and the homes, and now they mention about their wives and their children and their homes. They are abandoning, and now they declare that they are abandoning, means they are leaving their homes, their wives and their children, but they believe that their families will be better off without them by this point, and now they believe that their families are in a better condition without them. Life has moved on, and their return would only cause more problems. And as time has passed, and their families have moved in their lives, so will cause more problems after going them. They are content to live as they believe the gods do, and they think that they are contented by that life, they are satisfied by their life, and they believe that they are living in the god like condition. They will lay in their fields of lotus as the gods do in their valleys of asphodel, and they are living and laying in those fields like the gods do in the valleys of the asphodel, means as the gods are living in heaven, and look out on human misery, and they will look on human miseries as gods do. They will make no effort to intervene or help, and they will do no effort to intervene in the lives of the human beings or help to them. The poem concludes with the men stating once more, reassuring one another that their wonders are truly finished, and now they declare, and the poem's conclusion is that they declare in the end that they will no wander more, they will do not go anywhere, and they will not sell in their life, and they will not do anything in their life, and they will rest in that island. Okay, so this is the introductory part of this poem, and I think you understood it. Okay, bye.